Super great to see you, Jan.
Yeah, yay, we're live. Okay, take two. Hi, everyone. It's Thursday evening, the third Thursday of the month, which means it's time for, I'm going to get in my storybook mode, Paving the Ways, Parent Tech Talk, brought to you today by Paving the Way. So happy Thursday, y'all. As you know, every month we are committed to educating parents, and we're doing it with our Parent Tech Talk this month about digital empowerment. And I'm super, super excited to have, I'm going to say, a new great friend, right? You know how the first time Matt and I talked on via Zoom, we were like on the phone for an hour and a half, and we could have gone for another hour and a half. There was so much synergy and just great dialogue and energy and conversation. So I'm thrilled to have my friend Matt Richardson on with us tonight. And he is the Director of Intelligence. It's a very cool title for ATII, and I'm going to have him explain all about that and give a little bit of sense of his background and, you know, how he got into this. And then we're just going to talk about ways to empower parents, really what's going on in the digital platform. School just started for us down here in Florida. It's starting all over the country as we go through the next couple of weeks, and, you know, actually probably all over the world, thank God. And we just really want to leave you with some tools and acknowledge you for hopping on tonight. So Matt, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Jan, my friend. Always appreciate you and the opportunity to join your amazing audience. And appreciate those of you that view after the fact on demand. Wonderful to have the opportunity. My name is Matt Richardson, and I'm from a small town outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So you might pick up on my accent here and there.
It's good. It's good. We like it, though.
Thank you. I am the Director of Intelligence and Investigations with the ATII, and newly also in part of my portfolio is child safety, which includes trust and verification. So a little bit about me, how I got to what I'm doing. It's kind of an unusual, vocation. And it's as simple as in 2010, I became a father. And when I became a father, I became a man. I was no longer a man-child. I had real priorities and dreams. My dreams changed. My nightmares changed too. And I wanted to find ways to keep my kids safe and do so in an empowering, non-frightening way. And a few years ago, I was recruited and begun doing operations on predator ID work and sex trafficking operations. And where that would apply tonight is that gives me the ability to not only assist on that front line, but also I have insight on their behaviors and their tactics and techniques, which gives me the ability to give you the best possible timely advice that I possibly can. So I want to just say I come to you tonight first and foremost by a large margin as a loving, doting, caring father, caring adult with the best possible advice that I give my own beloved children.
And that's so true, because when you and I first talked, you were just gushing about your kids, right? So I can say he's not just saying, no, like this man loves his children and he is committed to keeping all kids safe. And I think that's really important. You said something earlier about like what you do, digital footprints. So can you explain just, because everybody on here doesn't do what you or I do, right? And so when I start talking in terms and language that I watch eyes glaze over and I'm like, oh, hang on, let me back up and give you some context, right? So let's talk about, digital footprints and really the core business of what ATII does, so that gives parents some context for, that there are some great organizations out there looking out for our kids.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Jan, for that. And my organization, the ATII, the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative, ATII, we work actually in all these lanes or these areas. So we work with corporations, banking, retail, law enforcement at the higher level to affect high-level change. Operations, yes, but also social change, social responsibility.
Okay. Say more about that.
So at the high level, we help and we work with corporations, for example, with things like Know Your Customer, KYC. to be able to identify strange or problematic transactions and indicators that something is wrong, and then how to create reports that are actionable for law enforcement. And we give them the confidence, the training, the tools in order to be able to do so at those levels. And we do that on a daily. We support operations, and we do that on the daily as well, like the bread and butter. Let's get some bad guys off the street and out of society and in prison. Let's recover kids that are missing and endangered. We do those things too. And before long, Jan, we're entering into that child safety trust verification, where we're going to be empowering families and children more directly along my lines about education and prevention and awareness as well. And that's a lot about what we do at the ATII. As a father, I look at it like, what do I want and need for my kids? Because people like yourself, Jan, and me, all kids are our kids.
They are.
So it's big, right?
They are. It's like when we go educate kids, I'm like, well, my kids, and people, I'm like, well, look, you got to get, the moment I walk out the door, if there's a child, like I was just at a grocery store the other night, and all I saw was this little blonde head. That's all I saw. And she's kind of looking around, right? And so I went over closer to where she was, and I looked, and her mom had bent down, and I think she had spilled her purse or something. And I'm like, are you guys okay? And the mom's like, yeah, I don't know, we're good. Okay. We're okay. And the little girl's like, like that. But it's like my eyes are always up and out, and I always sit with my back facing the front door. And it takes a very special man, and my male friends that know this, right? Because I'm not attached. My male friends know this, that is a coveted spot. I've got to trust you to sit in that spot so you've got your eyes open, because so few people aren't aware. So let's talk about awareness, not only in the physical sense, but online. Because I think digital awareness is a really important key for parents to fully grasp what's happening in that space and what they should, really, what can they look for?
That's just the best question in the world, because this is where I start. Those of you on this call now or that view after are already in the position to win, because you're present and engaged in your kids' lives. And what's old's new. What's true in Canada is true in Portland, Oregon, or Miami, Florida. In the 80s, before the internet, there was predators. There were traffickers, different words for them, but they were there. Grooming tactics, lures, the power of secrets, flattery, bribery, all those things were there.
Yes.
If all of you walk away knowing you know more than you give yourselves credit for, you're ahead. We do not parent technology, computers, tablets, or phones. We parent kids and teens, and the human behaviors. You know what predators act like, because you were taught, and I was taught by McGruff the crime dog, what's old's new, period, full stop. And how do you know something's wrong? You'll find it at the dinner table. You'll find it after school. How was your day? Technology is a red herring. And Jan, if I can add one last thing.
Yeah, please.
I'm an 80s kid. And in Canada, much like my American friends, we grew up with that stranger danger hysteria, and we thought strangers are the biggest threat. And we were told numbers that were really quite accurate and things on stranger danger, and the hysteria was really quite something. I grew up under it. Strangers were a red herring. My parents, if I brought them on the call right now, would say we were taught and trained and coached to look for the guy in a trench coat with a scruffy beard in a creepy dark corner of a parking lot. Yes. We know we should have been looking for the neighbor or their 24-year-old son home from university. Today, the red herring isn't the stranger, it's the device. You're worried about the phone and TikTok. Oh, TikTok's evil. What about Instagram? We need to be parenting our kids and watching for those human behaviors. That part has not changed, Jan.
Yeah, it's so great, Matt, that you shared that. Is one of the, because I was talking to a task force in another city, and they asked me, they said, what do you do when a child self-discloses? And when we go in and train, We've had parents kind of push back a little bit, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I would rather have a parent push back and ask questions than be laissez-faire, okay, to be straight, because I've got answers. Is, what do you do if the child's being abused at home? And I said, it's the same protocol. In the state of Florida, we have one very simple protocol. You call the abuse hotline, number one thing you do. Then you call law enforcement. And then we're really blessed here in Central Florida. We've got two phenomenal organizations, One More Child and Flight Center, both take care of young people that have been trafficked or exploited from 10 to 24. And they have mobile services that they just wrap their little arms around them and they go wherever they are. So if they're at home, they have the dialogue at home. If they're in a foster home, they have the dialogue at the foster home. If they go back home, they follow the child to ensure that child has what they need after experiencing that kind of trauma. And I said, the reason why when we talk to kids, we quite frankly don't want parents in the room, you and I both know what happens with kids when the parents are there. Am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Is that, should I not have, there's this concern. It's like, I want children to be fully self-expressed. We know what to look for. We have professionals in the room. So then we can let that teacher, that counselor know, hey, when this part of the film showed, their foot was moving. It didn't stop moving the rest of the film. Something's happening with that child. I'm inviting you to go investigate, right? And then when we have children self-disclose, we have that call. And it's that gut feeling that we talk about. That's what we teach kids, and we teach parents the same thing. So back to that stranger danger and familial thing. What percentage have you guys found online that happens to be family?
Well, so when it's like strangers or unknowns or acquaintances, the enticement and the pretext, the selection and the grooming will happen more on the online. The outcomes aren't entirely different.
Okay, I'm going to hold you right there. Selection. Let's talk about selection. That's so good. This really gives context for the enticement piece. What are they looking for? What are our kids doing or posting or saying? What are they looking for?
Oh, great question. So actually, it's just not going to be surprising. They're going to look for people that they find attractive. Just as 1974, Ted Bundy would have looked for attractive women on the university campuses. They're going to look for, now online's a bit different because we share more online, so they see more in here. Yes. So vulnerabilities. Oh, must preface what I'm about to say with this. Vulnerabilities aren't weaknesses. Jan, you have them. I have them.
We all do.
We all do. Human condition. When they exhibit online, predatory actors, traffickers, exploiters of children are really good at seeing them and then saying everything they feel we need to hear in order to win our trust and our affection so they can exploit. In 1974, Ted didn't have that, but they do have that now.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They'll look for that. FML, like F my life.
Mm-hmm.
Low self-esteem, poor body image. If they're confused about their sexual identities, LGBTQ, if they're from marginalized communities. So if they're from impoverished communities or if they're Indigenous in Canada, we unfortunately see a whole lot of that.
So do we here.
Those are the things they just look for what they can exploit. And what a lot of people don't think about, or maybe know, is they're fairly aware of like who they can obtain. So if it's an older predatory actor, because they don't usually catfish, that does happen, but they might say, I'm Matt and I'm 44, but they might send a picture of when I was 24, right? But they will try to find somebody they feel that they can obtain. So if you're too attractive with high levels of confidence and stuff, like maybe not for everyone, but they're kind of realistic about that. But ultimately they seek the vulnerability, and they'll creep the profiles, and they'll find out what you like, what you don't like, your fears, your dreams, your aspirations, and they will be everything you've ever needed. They will say what no one's saying to you, and they'll make you feel great about it. And it's not an easy thing to spot. People are like, well, how come they don't see that? Well, your dopamine is raging because you're being told you're attractive and mature, and no one's telling you. And you're,
Absolutely.
yes.
And it's so interesting because, I was just, I have Instagram. I just deleted TikTok. Because of that. And I actually, let me open it up. It's so funny. I'm like, and I think I took a picture of it because I want to show kids it's not just them, right? It's not just them.
No.
Um,
While you do that, Jan.
Yeah. But yeah, please. Yeah, please. The conversations they have it's everything that you've ever wanted to hear.
Yeah. I get it too. Now, no one's trying to like entice me to traffic me, but they're trying to separate me from my money. And
Yes.
they look me up on LinkedIn and they go, the guy has an ego because he's on camera and he does that. And it's not true, but they glean this. Okay.
Right.
He has an ego and he's an entrepreneur. So he likes the big paychecks because entrepreneurs like that to level out the dips and flows. So they come to me with offers that are too good to be true. The predatory instinct is the same. Their motive is to separate me from my money, but they perceive vulnerabilities in me too. It's just different motives.
Yeah. So here it is. Hi, how are you today? Well, I saw your beautiful and charming profile, so I thought I'd message you on the comment page so we can be good friends if you don't mind.
Weren't you flattered, Jan?
I'm telling you. Well, what's so interesting, and this is what we coach kids to look for, is this guy's got 97 followers and he's done 10 posts. And if I go and I look out at his profile, he's following 115 people. That's it. He has 10 posts. And that's the stuff that we have kids look for. I'm like, I want you to go into your DMs right now. And they're like, he only has like 2 posts and he follows like 1,000 people, but only has 2 follows. I'm like, well, there you go.
And who does he follow? Are they mostly young ladies?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, as a matter of fact, yes. Who does he follow? That's so brilliant.
Yep. And it's not normal because if you have a follow request, if you look at my Instagram, Jen, go ahead. I have a pretty equal distribution of males and females and a fairly equal distribution of age, but that's an appropriate age for a man of my age.
Of course.
But if I have 90% of my followers are female and they're like 23 to 17 or 15, not so much.
No, and it's fascinating to watch young people's eyes get big and bigger and bigger when they realize they've been had. Yeah. And then they get mad, which is what I want.
I like the anger in that context.
I do. I want them to get upset at look, you're a commodity, and I'll have because I'll have my little water bottle and my cell phone. I'm like, look, who you are for them, that's it. Commodity, object. That's all you are. And NCMEC, that information bears it out. 60% of these online predators, all they want are the pictures to buy, sell, and trade. It's all they want. You're nothing more than a picture. Let's talk about sextortion, because that is a really hot topic right now. That sadly, that young man that lost his life, a few months ago from being sextorted. There was another article that was just posted last week about that it's really on the rise. Let's talk about the flavor of sextortion, because they're really targeting our boys with this. Let's talk about what it looks like. Let's talk about, more importantly, what parents can do and how they can broach this conversation with their boys, because it's embarrassing. Our boys don't want to talk about it.
That's another super great question. What a timely one, Jan. Hats off. Because it's always, we always think of the ladies with this, and it's true for them. But with NCMEC, and I work closely with them, the spike that we're seeing is in teenage males.
Yes.
So before I get to the why, you're going to wonder, before I get to the why is it males, I'm going to say, if you were a 15-year-old guy if you came of age before the internet, would it be tempting to connect with girls online and do the like be honest?
Of
Oh,
course.
who's glad on the line, by the way, that there wasn't social media when you were coming of age?
Yeah.
I got two thumbs, and this guy is. It's just so easy to entice young men without the internet, let alone with it. So,
Yeah.
not the hardest target. Let's agree. They entice them, and then, and these are good young men, and then they get shamed, or they get, if you don't do this,
Well, let's talk about the enticement. Like, what's it look like?
it would generally be a matter of connecting on a soul. Generally speaking, there's
Like my little buddy here that tried to connect with me, saw your beautiful and charming profile, right?
Yeah, so let's look at that, Jen. Let's put yourself in the shoes of a 14-year-old boy, and my sons are 12 and 7. So I am having these conversations, I'm sure, with you right now, like literally every day. Imagine you're 14 and you're unsure of yourself. You're in an awkward phase. You're prepubescent, entering puberty. Voice is cracking. Your body's changing. It's a really weird time for any one of us. And then an attractive partner, male or female, starts to compliment you and flatter you. And you build a rapport, and that's the grooming. And you send a nude to somebody that you trust, and all of a sudden it goes, and they become a really scary thing. Imagine how terrifying that would be.
It'd be mortifying.
You would tremble. You would, if we're being honest. What happens up here is you go in that fight or flight. You're not really cognitively thinking. You're just thinking survival. You either send more nudes or go on the video, like the live stream, or both,
right?
Or you get outed. So they're doing the former in some cases and not the latter. What happens is when you acquiesce and you send more of the images, or you do the live streams, or both, the demands get more and more progressively worse.
Mm.
I don't want to get into that. It gets bad. It gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it can start off with, take your shirt off, show me your chest, or if it's women, if it's girls, it's just take a picture in your panties and bra. Like it's just like, and they make it sound so simple, right? It's just like you wearing your bathing suit. It's no big deal.
Yep.
And because they've bonded with you so quickly, you feel safe. You shared your heart. They answered that question. And now the next thing you know, they're sending a body part pic, and it's like, well, you know how much I care about you. I want you to send me one too.
Well, and from there it will gravitate to things that you're not comfortable with.
Yes.
That you might say no to, but that's where they'll go. You're going to do it. I'm sending everything you sent me to your mom, your grandmother, your pastor at your church, your teachers, your friends. I'll ruin you. And they'll lie, and they'll say no one will ever love you. You'll be forever dirty and tainted. And they lie like that. They threaten them. And then that's where you get the cases like Amanda Todd in Canada, where she tragically took her life because she felt she had no out. But the demands get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And they don't feel like they have an out. So
they feel trapped.
They're super trapped. And that's why these young men and women are taking their lives, is they don't feel there's an out. And when I look at it too, by the way, I hope this isn't too dark, but I'm going to be honest, because I think we should be telling your kids this. And
no. We go with we're cards on the table here.
Well,
right. And if we're going too dark, it's like, look, I'm going to give you a trigger warning right now, but I'm going to tell you what it's like, because what the things I like to do sometimes is have parents, I'm like, look, just set your kid down in front of this video, press play, make sure they've got a drink and a snack, because you've already seen this, come back. Because the reason why you and I are so effective at what we do with other people's children is because they're not ours.
Good point, Jan. Thank you. I do want to give you this. They need to know it.
Of course they do.
How much are you worth? Know your worth. What are healthy relationships? What is
Mm.
love? What is sex? Teach them. The dining room table will be the front line of this war.
Yeah.
I have investigated forums and offenders where they buy, sell, and trade these kids like baseball cards. So they get bored of one. I will trade her to you for him and her. She will do
Yeah.
this and this. And they're just out there like a commodity. So if I'm
Yes.
a 12-year-old girl and I'm thinking I'm beautiful and lovely, and if you are a 12-year-old girl in here, you are beautiful and lovely, but know your worth. To them, you are nothing more than a baseball card, and that's it.
Yes.
And it's scary because the one that's frightening you will all of a sudden be joined by two others
Mm-hmm.
because he sold you. It's
Mm-hmm.
trafficking, Jan, of course, but it's
It
not
is. It's digital trafficking.
digital trafficking.
It's digital trafficking, and uh, like I said, when we go out and talk to the kids, we do have kids self-disclose. And there was one school we were at, and this little girl, came up afterwards and said she'd been out of it for about a year, not quite. And she said she started at 10. There were these two guys that told her she was beautiful. And, for 3 years, her she tried to tell her mom, and her mom didn't believe her. Right. And the thing that parents go to is, what did you do? Well, I try not to be redundant, but I'm going to say it every single time, is the prefrontal cortex of our children's brain is not fully developed. The decision-making part of our brain is not done being cooked until we're between 28 and 32. They're kids. That's all they did. They were breathing and they have a phone. That's all they did. They didn't do anything. Right. And that's where the guilt and shame comes in. And when we tell kids, it's not your fault, and I repeat it several times, Matt, their shoulders just drop. It's like, oh, okay, it's not my fault. Like, it has to resonate with them for them to get that they've been intentionally targeted. And this little girl said to me, she goes, there's sometimes I miss that interaction and those accolades, AKA the dopamine hit. She misses that level of dopamine hit. And I get it. Like, when's the last time you walked into a department store, that whiff, that smell? It's the same kind of thing. It gets all those kinds of hormones going, the buying hormone, right?
Yeah.
Very similar.
Very, very well, very, very well put. And I love the way you put that. Why does this happen to me?
Yeah,
You're a
it's
kid.
easy. It's easy for grown-ups to make that connection, especially women. We love to shop. I don't know why, but we do. My dad loved to shop too. But it's that, when you, or walking into Mrs. Fields, same kind of thing. It's the reason why the realtors say bake chocolate chip cookies before you show the house, right? So there are things that happen inside our brain, right? So let's go back to the sextortion piece. So this young man he's sent a picture, right, that he knows he shouldn't have, or it's uncomfortable and he gets pressed in, and then he's like, then it's too much. And he says, no, I'm not going to do this. What do the extorters do next?
So the very next thing that they will do is they'll issue threats. They'll say, well, what you've already sent me, I'm going to share that with everyone you know, your teacher, your pastor, your grandma, your mom and dad, and your friends. And then they'll lie and they'll threaten them and say, no one will love you. You'll be dirty. Police will take you away from your family because they didn't protect you. Or you can just do what I told you, be on that live stream for 15 minutes, do whatever you're told, and then I'll go away. They lie and they threaten them.
And then they don't go away.
They never go away. It's like Amanda Todd's tormentor, or a gangster says, well, if you pay this demand, then we're gone. They're never gone.
No.
But with my kid, my son's 12, and he knows what I do.
Yeah.
I tell him all the time, up to and including last night, Jan, I know you know what I do, but I'm also a human being, and I'm far from perfect. I'm flawed. And I did some stuff when I was your age, and it's normal. If you, and I say this to him, I go, it's not if you make a mistake, but when you do, come to me, come to your mother. Or if you don't want to come to me or dear old mom, I know I made mistakes I wouldn't want to go to my parents with, go to your Uncle Bobby or your Aunt Ashley. Get help. We trust them. They will not tell us anything you don't want us to know, but they know how to get help. If you make a mistake, or when you do for that matter, that's okay. That's how people learn. You don't need to keep making it. And if you listen to threats and you acquiesce to them, take them seriously, but don't comply. It doesn't get better. It gets worse and worse. It's like the hole gets deeper. And I just told him, no matter what, like I say this every night so many times. My poor kid, I'll start saying it. He just finishes my sentence. I'll love you forever and always, no matter what.
Yes. And that's all that's all our kids want, and we coach parents. I said, because there will come a moment, right, when your child comes to you, and we talked about this before we came on live. We've stood in front of over 19,000 young people in the past 5 years. Okay. Like personally. So we know a little bit, right? And hearing the kids' fears and worries and concerns. And so what we tell the kids, I said, look, your parents are human beings. They're going to have a reaction, right? When you come to them and say, Mom, do you remember that conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about the thing and about they're going to get all tongue-tied and they'll look down and they're going to fiddle, right? That fidgety thing that we do when we don't want to say something. It's, I sent a picture I know I shouldn't have, and now he's threatening me and I don't know what to do. Right. And you had this conversation with me, and they'll leave that space right there. And for parents, we say, this is the most important 3 seconds of your and your child's life. Your face has got to be as neutral as it can possibly be. Inside, you'd be going nutty, not a problem. But this has to be as flat as effect as possible. And say, it's okay, honey. I love you. I got your back. We're going to handle this. That's all you got to say. That's all you got to say. And you're going to see a wave of relief come over them, right? And I'll say to parents sometimes, if you're having a reaction, because kids think everything's their fault. They do. It's just how we're wired, right? As children. It's like, honey, mommy is upset. My daughter gave me this cup for a reason. Mama bear. Okay. Mommy is upset. She is not upset at you. Right? Somebody's trying to hurt you and I'm angry and I need a second to take a breath before we talk about it, but I got your back. Like, it's okay to be straight that way. But let them know the anger's over here at this predator, not at them. And then the other thing that we tell parents, right? So let's say this happens, okay? Say there's a parent right now online, they go have this conversation with their kid and their kid does the fidgety look down, right? And they're like, yeah, Mom, this has been happening to me and I didn't know what to do, right? Now what? What's the next thing parents do?
So, great question. I love the way you put that, by the way. Like, be like a swan, I think this is saying. So you're calm up here. Under the water, you might be going like this. I love that. and I know it will rattle you. But I love that advice, is be as calm and ensure they know that the anxiety and any of the anger is not toward them. Because they're not the problem. They're just being 12. Mm-hmm. They're being 14. Yeah. Kudos on that. What do I do next? Excuse me. Actually, where I'd like to, pardon me. If I'm a parent and that happens, ultimately, we want to be able to go and get help on this. And I'm going to be looking for probably law enforcement, mm-hmm. possibly school professionals to be able to help me. Yes. So, excuse me. Pardon me.
Okay.
And they get a bad rep for not doing enough in that, but we have to acknowledge the fact that it's not that they don't want to help. like they're in those roles, and the vast majority of them are helpers.
Yes.
We have to help them help us. So go in. This is what I've done before, and I've done it directly in select cases, and I've coached others. But catalog and document with screenshots, messages, and emails, and any correspondence, annotating anything. Speak with your child on approximate days, but create some type of a document or a product you can go to police with and go, this is what's happened. Because when they can see screenshots and evidence that this is a sextortion case, and here's the emails, here's the DMs, here's the messages, and they can see the timelines on those messages and those emails, that takes the he said, she said, and the subjectivity out of it.
Yes.
So the best thing that we can do to get help is help the helpers help us with things of that nature. And one more it's hard to articulate, but if you've ever been in a position where you've experienced trauma, you're a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're from here to here to here and everywhere in between. So find a trusted member of your family or your inner circle of friends to be an advocate and help you collect and speak with helpers like law enforcement and school officials with you. Because if your child is in an unfortunate situation such as extortion and you're terrified, it might be a good idea. In fact, it would be a good idea to have an advocate there that's a little bit more objective to help articulate what you're trying to get and what the situation is.
Yes. Well, it's so great that you say that. So really the first thing to do is like just stop the action, right? Pause. Call local law enforcement. Screenshot everything, messages, emails, pictures, everything. And if you're using Snap, when I tell this to kids, they get all squirmy. I said, Snap pictures don't really go away. They sit on the server at Snap. And when law enforcement sends a warrant for information, they're going to get that picture, right? And so, and the one thing I will say about Snap is if someone takes a picture of your picture, it lets you know, right? So you can take the screenshots of someone took a picture of my picture. I tell parents, I said, the first thing you want to do is delete. And my friend Kim's on, it's like, you don't delete it. You can't delete stuff. You've got to keep it, because here's the thing. Your kid's not the only kid they're targeting. They target hundreds of kids. Yep. So you being that one brave adult to call these predators out can literally save hundreds of children's lives.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that, Jan. Can I back up for one moment? Advice for our kids. 3 words. Thank you so much for saying that. Stop block talk. If your kids are scared, they feel grossed out, frightened, stop block talk. Stop talking. Don't explain why. We have a habit of enabling predators by feeling that we owe them. We don't owe them nothing.
Mm-mm.
Block them, but don't delete anything. And talk to a trusted adult or companion. If we're an adult, by the way, and this happens to you, this doesn't only happen to kids, talk to someone you trust. Stop block talk. To the other point you mentioned, Jan. So if we stop talking, block them, and talk to someone to get some help, where it would be tremendously distressful. Those of us, and we are few and far between to some extent, when we step up and do the hard thing. Jan, you mentioned the predatory actors. Most of them are grooming multiple kids at one time, and the math, I believe the statistic, Jan, is a serial offender or a repeat can victimize up to 400 kids in a lifetime. And then you think of their family, siblings. So you get one of them. Because people ask me all the time, like, how do you do this? Because it's like the dike in Holland where you got all the holes.
Yes.
You just worry about one at a time, because when you get one kid at a time, and one of those predatory actors, trafficker, child exploiter or combination thereof, think of the ripple effect of getting that person off the street, and think of recovering that child. And that
Yep.
one alone makes it so worth it.
Yes. 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 You know, it's so interesting that I'm saying that one call can save many lives. You know, and that's the things that we talk to kids about. And I was in I don't know if Canada has this, but I'm a huge fan of Title I schools. I love my Title I kids. They're in the underserved areas. Nobody talks to them about what I talk to them about, and they eat it up and they engage and they have great I just love them, right? I just love them. And because they're smart and they're curious and their little hearts still care, like they still really care. And I was talking to some kids. We use I Am Little Red sometimes in middle schools versus our film. And we were talking about what would you do if you were in that situation or your friends were in that situation. If you saw someone being, bullied or enticed or, groomed or drugged or, any of the myriad of things that can happen out in the world. And this one kid kind of, leaned back the kind of cocky way and he goes, nothing. Now I'm in a room full of young boys. Okay. And I smiled at him and I go, I got it. You wouldn't do anything. Okay. I go, can I ask you a question? He goes, sure. I said, so let's say it's you. Let's say you're at a party and someone drops something in your drink and you don't see it. Would you want someone to interact and save you? And I just left it there, right? All the other boys, I was watching all the other boys and you could see them kind of like, well, yeah. Because the whole, snitches get stitches and end up ditches conversation was right there. And I said, you right there could save a life. Right there. You can be superheroes. All of you can be superheroes just by having that one conversation, by doing that one interaction and stopping the action and letting them know it's okay. It's not their fault. We're going to go get help. And you could see it on their faces, and he finally kind of went, he didn't be like, oh yeah, I didn't, but I watched the synapses connect. He got it. And that's what we want our kids to do, is to be empowered, to get it. And they want this, Matt, you were saying this, our kids want this data. So I invite parents to, let's not be quite so tentative. Let's just step right in and make it messy and screw up and not say the right things, because at least you're trying and your kids will appreciate that.
Well, but the best, most well-articulated way I've heard that ever put, because I've dealt with kids like that too, and they're dismissive. And previously my response was, that's fine. I can't help you because you're just not there. That's a way better way, Jen. So I'm actually better at what I do because of you.
Feel free to borrow it anytime. I'm a huge fan of the Socratic method of education, right?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we now have parents where they know to call local law enforcement, stop the action, block the person, don't delete anything, take pictures, screenshots of emails, everything, right? And they take it to the police. Now, here's my question, because I love that you said help the helpers, okay? Yeah. We both know most law enforcement officers that show up at our door after we call and report this really aren't going to be as familiar with this as the people on our vice squad, as the people on our task forces, right? They're really not going to know. So how can we help them get the seriousness of this as a parent?
How do we help the frontline law enforcement? Okay, great question. The example I'm speaking to actually was my first ever positive predator identification. It was before I was professionalized. It was a mother in my community, a military spouse. And we had become familiar because I've been teaching about parent courses on protecting kids. And she'd posted clothing online on a buy and sell 24/7 like Facebook page that we all use. And this really big creep, I won't repeat what he said, but it was really disturbing stuff about this 11-year-old daughter of hers. And she was terrified. She had went to police. But when you call the police, They come and now, to be fair to them, they're trained to do a little bit of all of the things and go to domestics and ride programs, car accidents, assaults, bar fights, and they do everything. So the cop shows up and says, "What do you want? We're not the Facebook police."
Yeah.
She came to me and I did what I described to you. I took some screenshots and I put together, it was just an email, like it wasn't anything here. And I found all this stuff and I figured out who he was. I put it all in this email. I said, "Now call them. And if they want to talk to me, I did this thing. Like, give them my name. I don't care." But the same cop came back and went, "Lady," and she goes, "Well, does this help?" And she showed the phone with an email. And he spent 45 minutes there and took notes, reported it to his Hamilton, Ontario
Yes.
ICAC unit. He was arrested. Well, we got an email and she sent it to me and said, "Don't communicate with him as you have been doing." She hadn't been communicating. We're investigating him. And then 3 weeks later, he was a part of a province-wide child pornography bust.
Wow.
And he got a lengthy prison sentence on our evidence. So the police, the front line, aren't trained and equipped to be specialists. Neither would a nurse or a doctor.
Right.
So give them a little bit of leeway on that.
And we're working to get them educated. That's for sure.
Yeah. And Jen, on what you're doing on that, you're making them more educated and it will get better. But
it will. It
we
will.
have to make it easy as we can for them.
Yeah.
Or
and I think what you just said, having all that stuff documented and, much like the medical environment, we've had to become our own advocates. We have,
Yeah.
I'm clear I kept my mom alive because I questioned what the doctors were doing or prescribing to her. Right. It's kind of the same thing inside of, you don't have to be a lawyer, but it really helps to know your local laws. The entire United States has a safe harbor law. Okay. We have Marsy's law. It is a felony in the United States to sex traffic a child, any child under the age of 18. Texas now has our buddy Joseph Scaramucci. I love that guy. Texas has a law now that it is a felony if you buy a human being. Now, the fact that we actually have to have a law to do that, but I got to tell you what, them passing that law, even if you're not convicted, if you're arrested for buying another person for sex or whatever, that's a felony. That affects your life forever.
That's
right?
a permanent.
It is. So I like to let people know, I'm like, look, there's some, and that's what we teach the kids these laws. I'm like, you need to know that you're protected. There are people out there. I don't know if you were in Dallas, but there were, I think, 5,000 law enforcement officers and victims advocates and intelligence organizations and members of organizations learning how to better go after these predators. 5,000. That's a lot. It might have even been more. I just remember reading somebody's thing on LinkedIn. Our kids don't know that there are people out there like you and like ATII that are trained, that actually have their eyeballs out on the digital platforms, looking out for them.
Thank you, Jan. Mothers, fathers, parents, guardians, all caring adults out there. It is so easily lost when we see these scary headlines.
Yes.
For every one of those jerks, there are men and women like Jan and me, and you don't see the thousands behind us. And I will say this, I get this all the time. Aren't they super cunning, like mad geniuses? No, they are not. They're cunning. But the smart ones are the Jan Edwards, the Matts, the Joe Scaramucci's, and the others.
Yes.
We have the tech, we have the brains, we have the will and the skill. The helpers and the good guys and the good gals outnumber them. The helpers are here. So when you get scared of one of those bad guys, just remember, what you're not seeing, we don't make headlines.
No.
There are amazing law enforcement, government organizations, NGOs of caring adults that will do nothing to save you and your children and your beloved teens from that filth.
Yep.
Full stop. You're looking at one, you're looking at another with Jan. you just don't see all those behind us. So
No.
that I'd say, Jan, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think that's really when I tell kids that it hits them because there's been so much horrific media about, law enforcement. And yes, look, there are bad people everywhere. There are bad people in every organization across the planet. Can't help it. There's greed, there's all of that stuff that comes out, all the 7 deadly sins, right? Yeah. I'm not going to punish the other 90%. I want to make sure that they can do their job, right? And that they can help me do their job to protect my kid. And, one of my most favorite humans, Lisa Haba, I don't know if you know who she is, but she's one of the attorneys that's taking on Twitter. She's also taking on Omegle. And they just shared the amicus brief about the Twitter case. Brilliant piece written by a law firm out in California. And there are these 2 little boys, 13 at the time. They were sextorted for sure, 100%. And they stopped. Luckily, they stopped. They did a hard stop because these people wanted this girl, and we know it was organized crime, wanted to meet them. Well, a couple of years later, they're toddling into high school, and one of their buddies holds up their phone and says, "Is this you? It looks like you. Is that you?" These people had put all of those pictures together and created a pornographic video and posted on Twitter. The kids, one boy, called Twitter's like, "Hi, I didn't authorize that. I'm a minor. Here's, because you have to prove you're a minor. Here's my ID. Please take that down." What do you think they said?
I think I'm familiar with this when they said, "No, we're not satisfied." Yeah.
Yep. Almost committed suicide. Luckily, his mom intervened. She called Twitter. Same thing. Didn't take it down. It wasn't until she lamented to a friend of a pastor who happened to know someone with Homeland Security that finally they took it down. Now, here's the piece that I really want parents to get. From day 1 to day 9, 167,000 views.
Yeah.
Thousands of downloads. That is long-term permanent trauma to our children. So I get this might be uncomfortable. I'm going to invite you to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Our kids need to know this. So Matt, you've worked on cases all over the world. What's the most memorable case you've worked on that had a happy ending?
Can I give you 2 if I do it briefly?
Sure, of course.
One was, one of them was the thing of our nightmares. And I discovered him organically on dark website, and over a period of months, determined a positive identification on him. And it was a lot of work. And I didn't really know what would happen at the time. This was one of my first. So this
was a perpetrator.
He was, this particular one was like, he was rare in that he was definitely an offender on the digital side, dark web, most egregious forms of CSAM. He also had every appearance of being a contact or a crossover offender, they call them, with desires for abduction and stuff. So I was really working hard on him because of all those reasons. And then I remember I did do the thing, I did the report, and I went through about 800 different dark web posts 4 or 5 times over to study all the linguistics and the behaviors, crafting topologies on them. And so I worked really hard. We got him, and you got 100 years, a hard 100, like no parole or anything in the United States. And he'll never, ever see the light of day again. And further, because of his age and his proclivities, at my advice, I was saying you should be looking in the Pacific Northwest at missing endangered youth from the 80s. And they are now doing that. So he is gone. The world would be better if he never existed, but he is gone.
Got it.
um, a, a more positive one. I'm sorry, that sounds really dark, but for me, it's like,
No, look, there's this kind of darkness out there, and it's imperative that people understand that. And more importantly, there's people like you with ATII and National Child Protection Task Force and Zero Trafficking and DHS, Homeland Security, right? There are organizations out there. One of my friends is the SAC, Special Agent in Charge. He's the Assistant Special Agent in Charge in Birmingham. Worked the masterful at the World Games, right? Making sure everything that was happening, and we helped recover some kids, and then there was that case that happened right after the World Games of this little girl it was on the news, chewed through her wrist. He tied her up, chewed through the rope to escape. Only to find out there were 2 other bodies there, and they were related to her. This stuff is real. Those people are real, and there are happy endings, right? And that's why we have this conversation. And when we talk to kids, we ask kids, I said, I want someone to have all of your passwords to every single social media platform. I said, put it, I got this from Kevin Branzetti with National Child Protection Task Force. He said, write them all down, put them in a breakable piggy bank, right? So there's no thing you can get about the bottom. Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah.
So should something happen, boom, they've got your passwords, saving the police, at least 24, if not 48 to 72 hours to try and find you.
That is super brilliant. In fact, I should do that with mine, because anything ever happened to yours truly, my wife has mine.
It's brilliant for our kids. It empowers them, right? Because they know. And Kevin's like, look, if you don't trust your parents, give it to your aunt, give it to someone you trust, right? Give it to your aunt, give it to your uncle, give it to your grandma.
If it's not broken, then it's not breached.
Exactly. And
wow.
That's really, I know, is so brilliant. And the kids are like, but you said, I said breakable, because if something happens to you and they need to find you, then they break the piggy bank open, because it's got all the passwords.
But they can't sneak it, because if it's broken, they saw it.
Exactly. Isn't that brilliant? See, I have such brilliant friends. I love the stop, block, and talk. I am stealing that.
Oh, my friend, you can have it. Stop, block, and talk, and let Mr. Branzetti know. Kudos, and introduce me if you don't mind. That's the kind of guy I want to meet. I don't know him yet. I
love him. He's just one of my favorite human beings, really. So we'll do a connect for sure.
That would be lovely. Thank
you.
Yeah,
no, I have the most amazing men and women in my life that fight this every single day. The victim advocates, the law enforcement officers, the dark web hunters like you guys. People need to know that there's people like you out there fighting for our children and fighting for our families. And we don't seek the headlines. It's not our job. Our job is to help protect and find kids.
Well, Jan, thank you. And, actually part of our job, as far as I'm concerned, is staying out of the headlines.
Yes.
So if I do my job the best way I can, you'll never know I ever existed. I'm a college professor. Yeah. Google me and, Matt teaches business faculty. Great. That means I did my job. Like an umpire in baseball, a good umpire, you never know they were there. The story is the second baseman hitting the game-winning home run. It's not the umpire. So that's how I see myself too, Jan. But
love it. Okay, happy ending story.
Happy ending story. Okay, so we've got the bad guy. And by the way, one thing before we move on, we get this, I feel it's a myth anyway, but personally, they're not masterminds. They are not like Einstein level IQs. They are cunning. The traffickers and predators are cunning. Mm-hmm. So they spot weakness, they spot vulnerability, and in their mind, they quickly devise scripts to say everything we want to hear. Cunning does not mean intelligent. The intelligent men and women are the Jan Edwards, and I'm going to humbly say myself and the others behind us that you don't see. The good guys, those are the smart ones, the intelligent ones. That should give you some comfort, because that is a criminal minds fallacy. Like it's a very masterminds. They aren't cunning, but not super intelligent. On the other side,
and highly manipulative.
super manipulative. They spot people and say all the right things, like a greasy, pardon me. The
Yeah. Well,
proverbial
what's interesting, yeah, it is. I've had my law enforcement friends share with me that they're like, look, we can take a predator to a mall, sit with him, sit him at a bench, and he'll be like, she was abused, he's vulnerable. Oh yeah, she needs attention. They can spot him like that.
like that, like the shark.
Mm-hmm. And
Or
it's
the
so funny because my dad taught me as a young girl. He's like, walk with your head up, your shoulders back, like you own the place. He goes, I don't care where you are. You walk in like you own the place. And I remember because I used to live up in Connecticut and worked for Time Warner, so I was in the city a lot, and that is how I roamed the city, like I owned it. Never once harmed, bothered, nothing. People got out of my way, right? Because I had this air of confidence, and in my world, air of protection of the Most High. People got out of my way.
Oh, you're bang on. Like when you have your jaw up and the gait, like your
Yes.
walk is purposeful and
Yes.
focused. What you said about the predators in the mall, that is interesting, but not surprising. I have no doubt they would see things you and I might not, Jan, like by body language. So that's the cunning.
Yes.
I don't have that. I guess I shouldn't, and we shouldn't. But yeah, the gait, the look in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the good one that we got to give everyone, like, even just, I hope we have enough hope here because you all know more than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah.
You already know how to spot grooming and predatory behavior and weird signs and what if my kid has something wrong going on. Look at the dining room table. But one, we did recover a kid. She'd been missing for 6 weeks or 6 months.
Mm.
She was 14 years old. New York City, so not the easiest, place to look. But when we were asked to kind of have a look, and it's not an exaggeration, within an hour, myself and a colleague, and I give him credit, by the way, it was me pinning him, and he did it. But within an hour, we had a location with screenshots and sent it back to the requesting LE department. And what I'm proud to say and happy to say is we sent that, and we did actually get a response, Jan, unlike we don't always, but safely recovered back with family. So she not only was recovered, there were 2 perps arrested, and she took the help and went home and didn't stay with them. So we did recover that one that way. So we've had bad guys taken off the streets, but I'm even more happy in many regards that we've recovered some of these missing kids.
For sure. So our time is drawing near. See, we could go on and on forever and ever. I always like to leave parents with, 1 to 3 very clear actions, tools, tips from an expert like you. We've already given them 2. I love, and we're going to give them 3 more. I love the dining room table as the front line in this war. I love that. I love stop, block, and talk. Brilliant, right? We told them to capture all the data, but really, let's give them a couple of more tips, maybe how to have this conversation with their kids.
All right, let's do 3, and we'll make them short and sweet out of respect for time, Jan. But
perfect.
Let's trust ourselves and give ourselves credit for what we know, moms and dads, guardians, and all caring adults. It's not a one and done. Let's teach our children, our teens, and our beloved youth how to spot problematic behavior, grooming tactics, and they're not different offline and online for the most respect or the most part. Secrets and flattery and bribery, and if it's too good to be true, the better life. You can't do that in one conversation. Let's keep that one going. Number 2, breathe and pause and go, forget about the tech crap. If you need to know an app like, oh, my kid wants to go on TikTok, I'm a busy work from home father. You can do what I call a coffee break Google. I take my cup of coffee outside, I go on my porch, and I will Google TikTok and privacy settings, TikTok and dangers. Have a cup of coffee. And if you are thinking maybe my kid wants it, do I want to give it to them? Vet it with a quick coffee break Google. If you vet it and you're satisfied it's safe, look for things like, can I report abuse? Is there trust and safety measures in place? Is it staffed? You can Google all that and find it. And if you say, yeah, it's cool, you can just Google TikTok, how to set it up or privacy settings. Your phone will give you those answers. You don't need to be worried about parenting those devices, parent your kids. That's two. Number three, and I'm going to repeat this one, so worth repeating. This whole battlefield is fought and won at that dinner table, period. How are you today? How was it? Did you make up with Ben, your friend? Is everything okay? You've been quiet today. What's going on? And they might talk to you about things like Minecraft and Fortnite, and my kids do it. And I go, but they're talking to you. And the last point on that third point, Jan, how do we beat trafficking and exploitation? The dinner table won't happen today, but we have to decrease demand.
Yes.
Our sons and daughters need to know about healthy relationships, what love and respect and trust really looks like. They need to understand pornography is not reflective of real sexuality and love and intimacy. And our young, or especially our sons, need to understand under no way, shape, or form is it ever okay to pay for flash or sexual services. And only over time can we win that fight. We have to bring demand down. And on the legislative side, and I'm not taking a political stance, we need to make the penalties higher and the demand lower, and then the market dissipates.
Yes.
And then we can start to win.
100%.
Maybe a family, Jan, at the dinner table.
Yep, I love it. I love it. You know, the bottom line is get involved and be with your kids. You know, my daughter used to invite me to go to MegaCon. Now, yes, I have that is okay, but my daughter gave it. You're right. That was my daughter's thing. Okay, I have Wonder Woman all over the place. That was who she saw me as, right? Every time my daughter invited me someplace, I went. You know, you just go. I don't, you know, and I dressed up one year, you know, you just go. You go do the thing, you show up. They have a dance recital, you go to the dance recital. They've got a soccer game, you go to the soccer game. They've, you know, whatever that thing is that they're going to do, just be there. Just be there. You know, and over time, that builds that foundation of that we're there. And even through life's journey, they know way back when who was sitting in the front row of kindergarten, you know, graduation, or who was there on the soccer field, who took all the kids after theater out for, you know, ice cream, who did the time warp in the parking lot. We did.
I love that.
You know, that's the kind of memories that you want your kids. So when they're angry at you, there's those little things in the back. I used to hold on to. My mom dropped off a pair of shoes for me when I tried out for cheerleading. And they didn't like my mom for a really long time. I never disowned her, but I didn't like her. And I would always grab a hold of that memory that she drove all the way to one side of Phoenix, to all the way to Scottsdale to drop those shoes off for me. I'll never forget it. And those are the things, those are the little building block memories we can give our kids.
That's poetry. And it's super true. Present and engaged and loving and caring. We're not perfect as parents, but Jan, that's the kind of thing I really remember too. Now you got me thinking, I'm going to have to call my dad more often.
I know, for sure. So this is the website for ATII. I love that. Follow Money, Fight Slavery. If people have questions about what you guys do, how to get involved, because I know you have volunteers. There's, you know, retired law enforcement, retired intelligence people, retired, you know, people who want to help. They can go there and find out how to be part of your volunteer team. Yeah?
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. And again, I can't say how much I appreciate the opportunity tonight, Jan, and thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight and tunes in after the fact on demand. Yeah. It's just very much appreciated. I hope you learned a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks you all. So again, thank you so much. I apologize for us being late, little technical difficulties. Facebook, you cannot be late for lives from StreamYard, just so you know, little friendly tech tip. Just thank you for those that you were with us. Thank you for, to those that are going to listen to us afterwards. And please share. This is the kind of information you can share with any parent, any guardian, any teenager, any college student, any college professor, right? Educators. This is good stuff that everyone should know. And if we all have our heads up and our eyes out, then we can all save some lives. Y'all have a great night.